From the studios of TLC Talk Radio, it's TashaTalkz. I'm your girl, Tasha. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Catch us every day on TLCTalkRadio.com, 24/7 edutainment. And today, we are going to have the part 2 of Smart Money Matters. That's what I'm going to call it today. Our friend, Jason Harris, who's a broker and sales manager with Smart Mortgage Centers Incorporated, is back so that we can continue our conversation from last week. Welcome back to the show, Jason.
Well, how you doing, Tasha? What's going on, lady?
Listen, it's great. We're trying to get everybody educated. And
Yes.
Again, full disclosure, I am a realtor. So, this is beneficial for everyone, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So last week, we kind of left off in the middle of talking about people being more intentional with their money. It's still the top of the year. And people are saying, okay, this is my New Year's resolution. Here's what I'm going to do better.
Right.
And so what is that first piece of advice you would give someone who's looking to secure a mortgage loan?
So we would start, like I think we mentioned before last time. Do you have a budget? Do you have a working budget, a working household budget?
Mm-hmm.
What is that budget? So that's kind of what you would really start with. That's what you should start with internally, I would say. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what everybody's walking around doing, but if a person was looking to buy a home, that's what I would recommend they begin to look at internally is, are you working with a honest budget? And basically, when you speak of a budget, you're essentially saying that you are actually self-aware of what your finances, what your income, what that stuff looks like.
Yeah.
Or you're beginning to understand what that looks like, whether you just started or been doing a budget for, say, 10 years. Okay, so that's kind of what you want to start doing. What is the budget? Because the budget means now we can start talking about what's the budget, how much can you afford to make in a mortgage payment?
Yeah.
Which determines how much of a house you can afford to buy. That's the budget. How much cash do you have for a down payment is going to determine what type of mortgage programs you can qualify for to buy said house based upon the value of the home. Mm-hmm. So all that plays out. There's just different components, but it's all the same. It's a working budget.
Yeah, definitely. When people are at the beginning of the home
Mm-hmm.
buying process, what are some frequently encountered questions you get?
Generally, it's what's the process? What do I need to do to get a mortgage loan? So it's a basic question. And then I will go through and pretty much fill them out and ask a series of questions, and pretty much more of it in a conversational manner.
Okay.
Let's start with the credit. That's kind of the first thing that, we talk about. Tell me about your credit. Describe your credit to me. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think your credit looks like. Let's have that conversation. I like to do that, me personally, before just having a person go out there or basically get the information, try and run a credit report. Let's have a conversation what you think your credit looks like. Let's have a conversation what you think your profile looks like. So we'll try and set that up first, because that kind of tells and sets the tone of where this is going to go. Versus a lot of people, what happens is they get a little nervous when everything becomes more cold and hard facts. They call a company up. The company basically quickly gets them on the phone, gets information, runs credit, asks all these 20 questions. They're confused. They don't know what this means because nobody's really walking them through the process. So for me, what I like to do is just simply, let's have a conversation. Tell me what you're trying to do. Tell me what you think you're trying to do. Let's hear what some of the water cooler talk that you've had as well, because what happens is I don't dismiss it, but I like to clarify it.
Sure.
Because what happens is that what I've found out over the years is that people get bits and pieces of a story, and stories actually emerge together. So a person will say, I was at work, I was at church, and they said, I got to have, this much money, I got to make this much, my credit's got to be this. And they're throwing all this stuff together, and it becomes jumbled from time to time. So we'd just like to slow them down. Let's talk about it. What are you trying to do? and
Yeah.
let's just go down some basic steps and talk about what you think your credit looks like. Tell me about your job, your income, just basic stuff. We work our way down there. I have a checklist of what I'm going through, but I want to go through it in a manner that we can have a discussion versus an interrogation.
And that's part of the relationship building. Like, this is an incredibly, important purchase. Like, I'm not going to buy a
Very
new
much
pair
so.
of shoes, right? So it's important that get to know as much as possible the people you're dealing with, your team, your realtor, your
Correct.
lender, your attorney, so that they understand what it is you're trying to do. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. How, for those who are unaware, how do mortgage rates work?
So as far as the market trades what we call mortgage-backed securities, the rates trade off of the 30-year Treasury bond, the 10-year Treasury bond. If you're into that realm of finance, where you're watching the market. So if you're watching the market, that's what they're trading off of. They don't trade off of necessarily the prime rate or what you hear, the discount, the Fed rate or whatever, because that's not what they do. So they're trading off of that actual mortgage-backed security, or they're trading off of a similar index, which is, for the most part, it's the 30-year Treasury, the 10-year Treasury. Those are the benchmarks that they use.
When you say 10-year Treasury, 30-year Treasury, break that down for those who aren't aware.
That's literally the Treasury securities that are traded on the stock market.
Okay.
Daily, because rates are traded daily. Okay, so that's the baseline, what they're using. They're going to use a Treasury index. Some of the subprime loans of the past use what they call the LIBOR index. It was a London Interbank Offer Rate Index is what it was. And that was supposed to be a little more stable than maybe like the cost of funds index or something like that. So that's kind of what, from an academic standpoint, that's the basis of how that works. In practical matter or layman's matter, what happens is that mortgage rates, for the most part, they're published. So as opposed to, some people, if you're following the stocks and bonds, the economy on that macro level, then the 30-year Treasury, the 10-year Treasury, those things will make more sense. If you're not on that level, don't worry about that. You can actually just go and look up mortgage rates in the published, paper, Yahoo Finance or whatever like that. And they're actually localized per area as well. So that's really what you can do. You can get a feel for that. So that's modern technology today. The internet allows you to basically get a feel for what interest rates are.
Okay. And
so
then,
that's fairly standard and simple.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's easy to kind of, just like you said, go on Yahoo Finance or Google and say, hey, what are the current, mortgage rates for my area? Because like you said,
that's what it is. It's localized.
Yeah. Definitely location specific. To that end, how do politics play into, or presidential administrations in particular, factor in decision and how to make a real estate purchase? Like, we just had an election, yay, Joe and Kamala. I'm a little biased. And how do presidential administrations, their policies, their processes, how does that affect the average person getting ready to make a home purchase?
That's a good question. And as we've seen, that this has been quite an entertaining transition of power, to say the least. But if you're talking about that once again, we go back to the macro level of what is the administration doing? What are some of their goals? What are their plans? So previously, the previous administration, their job, their goal, their objective was to cut taxes and cut regulation. That was pretty much what their objective was. Okay, so for that, cutting taxes, basically that would maybe boost the economy, spending, the trickle-down economics that they were running from Ronald Reagan back in the 80s. That was supposed to, boost companies' bottom line. Workers get more money. They got more money to go out there and buy homes. As far as that, the taxes, so we got the tax bill, deregulation as well. Once again, that spurns it. But what happens is that each administration, and it's more, it runs parallel to a certain degree, because what happens is, um, the mortgage industry, in the internal mechanism of the mortgage industry, runs on a parallel track, meaning they have um, they have goals, they have guidelines that are running, whether it's with this administration or not. So the biggest thing was, um, from an academic level, you have the big mortgage services, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. They were supposed to come out of basically conservatorship through this last administration, through Trump. They were supposed to come out of there. That didn't happen, but that was a goal that they were supposed to do. They were supposed to come out of there. That would help, they say it would basically help make things better. It's yet to be seen because they're still in conservatorship. So that was done because,
meaning, for those.
So what happened was, we're speaking, we got to go back to the Obama administration.
Okay.
The Obama administration, what happened was, when the crisis happened, they had to go bail everybody back out, right?
Sure.
So they bailed out the banks, they bailed out the servicers, they bailed out the insurance companies, they were bailing out the auto industry, they were bailing out everybody. So what they were doing, they were cutting checks and they were taking IOUs along the line. And so what happens is that that's what they needed to do to stabilize the economy, move it along. But what happens is, the economy has basically, the real estate industry, if we just take that one segment, has been moving steady since maybe 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been on an arc, and it's been on an arc on its own. So politics come into that. Who's going to take credit for it? Who's going to get on CNN, the nightly news, and say, we did this, we did that? Grandstanding. But the reality is that it's part government policy, and it's part just people figuring out what's going to happen, what they have to work with, and then they go ahead into their own devices, they figure it out. So the real thing is that the real estate industry, the uniqueness about it is that it's always been able to figure its own problems out in time. So if it's left to its own devices, it'll figure it out. And that's essentially what they did. They figured out the regulation. They figured out how to license loan originators throughout the country. They figured out how to get back and beat back fraudulent appraisals by changing that system up. They've figured it out. And it's just a matter that each time down the line, this administration is going to put their name on it and say, hey, we did this, and do their little photo op, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So, that's kind of my cynical view, but that's kind of really how I see it. It's, kind of a baseline, because no one, from Obama to Trump, that wasn't a huge speed bump. That the mortgage industry, real estate industry, it didn't like it just, oh my God, it just went down from 0 to 60. It just kind of teetered along, and then when Trump came and he did his thing and whatever, good or bad, but as he handed the baton to Biden a week ago, it's still functioning. Over the last year and a half, the city of Chicago and area real estate has been basically fairly hot. It's a hot market. So, this administration is not going to turn around and just kill it. They need that because they need the rest of the economy to work. So this has always been the backbone of an economy. So that's kind of why it has big feet to move around with, and it needs to, because people need to see, the society at large needs to see home ownership. You need to see it, you need to feel it, you need to touch it, because that's one of the main pieces of hope. That, a college degree, 2 kids, a dog in the yard, that type of deal. That you need that. You need that. You need that. You do. You need that. And so that's sort of what you're seeing. So, like I said, there's certain little rules that, and this is, like I said, for the academic side, that they may change this rule, change that rule. But for the most part, I mean, you could just go back and look at historical interest rates, and that'll kind of tell you, now we have so much data we can go back and look at interest rates, home sales, et cetera, and you can pretty much chart it on a baseline. But for the most part, interest rates have been stable. I mean, since, from Obama to Trump to now, interest rates maybe were 4.5, maybe highest, maybe 4.5. I don't know. I have to look at the data directly, but Now they're, in many instances they're down and realistically they're only in the twos.
Yeah.
So, we were steady for 4 years of the three and then go down to the two. So now what happens is, well, I actually can't circle back. So the Fed, which basically is, the Federal Reserve is basically saying, hey, we're going to work on keeping interest rates stable for 2021 because we're still in this pandemic. And the forecast says that, we're going to be here for a minute. This is not going to be cleaned up in the spring. By spring, rather.
Agreed.
Sorry to be the Debbie Downer, but this is not going to be cleaned up, come Easter, say. Now, we'll still be,
yeah,
trudging along with that. Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, that's that's clear. As things are still slow, as we're trying to get the vaccines out, it's not going to be as speedy as people will hope. And I know that people are tired, but like you said, it's still pretty hot here, and it's still moving. The big
yeah, definitely.
I like
it's moving, and it's moving because the rates are attractive, sure. And people are also, in my opinion, I think the pandemic shifted people's thought pattern.
In what way?
In the sense that you're home. And being home is a reality. And now being home for many people is going to be their home base.
Yeah.
So historically, just like us talking right now, this would typically have been in an inner office, inner studio conversation versus over the lines of Zoom. And at that point, people can be anywhere.
Sure.
So, but what they're pretty much going to figure out is if I can be anywhere, I can definitely be home. And I can be home with my children, with my family. So what that means is that, hey, these rates are good, low. And so that means I could afford maybe to buy, a little bit more home than maybe I would have bought, say, if I would have did this maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So
I could buy a little more home. And if the inventory is out there, the stuff looks right, it fits, I can make it work. Hey, the people go out there and buy it. Because they're like, you need to secure your home, as they call it. You need to secure your house. So in the game of life, you need to secure your home. So that's what you're seeing people do. They're securing it so they can see, we've got this locked down. This is what I can afford right now. This is what we can do right now. And better things should probably look better 6 months, a year from now, whatever. It can only get better.
Yeah.
So if I can buy a home now, then definitely this will look better later on.
Yeah. But
this is, you've seen it. We've kind of all seen it. We've kind of all felt it to a certain degree. Is that, it's you get that feeling like, yeah, I should kind of do something, and yeah, okay, I talked to this person and I ran across that, and and that energy, because that's how it moves. It moves off of its own energy. People have been receptive. They've been responsive. So, that's largely what's happened.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a positive, because I think
Definitely.
More people will. Historically, you had to buy you would try and buy based upon where your job was.
Yeah.
Look, just go back 20 years ago. People were trying to, and you had to pattern your life off of your job, where it was. Okay, I can get 20 minutes to work or 30 minutes to work. I could beat traffic. I can do this. I could participate with after school activities or whatever if I wasn't so far away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was what people did maybe say 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the person is like, how am I going to plug into work and then plug into family and then plug in back to work and plug, it's just, how do I plug in?
It's definitely a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a game changer. I think that's a good kind of segue into my next question. As we talk about family as a broker, what in what ways have you seen your clientele change? Right. So it used to be, I'm sure in some instances still is, but let's say take my parents as an example.
Okay.
It was mom, dad, we're going to look for this house. My parents bought the house while I was on vacation with my godparents. I was 3. We came back, they came to pick me up, and we lived down the street. And I was like, we got in the car, and I'm like, where are we going? And my dad was like, home. And I was like, Pop's crazy. There's the house right there. But they had bought this other house and moved. And so it was that traditional nuclear family. Now you fast forward 30 something years, I get a divorce. It's just me. And if I look in my immediate circle, all of us are just single women who were like, I don't have to be married to own a home. Or
Correct.
some of my clients, yeah, I got this boyfriend. We may or may not get married, but I want a house. And
Correct.
not a part of the decision. What have you seen in your years as a broker as far as this clientele shift?
I mean, I've seen a tremendous shift.
Okay.
And that's telling my age, but I've seen a tremendous shift.
There's only one way to not get there, Jason. So please age.
Right. But I mean, what you see, I mean, it's really a microcosm of society. What you're seeing a smaller, streamlined nuclear family. And you may be a family of just one as far as a household. Previously, 30 years ago, that household was at least 4 or 5 or more people in a residential household. That household could just be one person.
Yeah.
So a person still has to have a place to live, even if it's just a party of one. And so what's happening is that's really where we are. We are now really just a party of one. And, that's where it is. So that because of that, people are they're still buying because they're also buying with the hope that maybe the party of one could expand a party of 2, 3, 4, whatever. People are conscious of, if a person is 40, just to give an example, a person is 40 years old, maybe they have, maybe they've got a teenager as far as a child. Maybe they share custody with the other parent. So they still need to have a full-fledged room for the child to reside in. Maybe they have an elderly parent.
Yes.
That they want to have the flexibility to be able to have the parent come and stay if as needed with them and not be inconvenienced and not their life slow down. So a party of one still may buy a 3-4 bedroom house because kid on the weekend or a few days a week, whatever the case it is, parent here, you got various people here, so you've got spare guest rooms available, so they use that. And for the most part, many people, if you're working from home, you would need a bedroom. So you would automatically flip one bedroom to your office. Indeed. So by default, even with a 3-bedroom house, one is already occupied as an office. And so that's kind of what you're seeing. And so is for a lot of it is that if we see some of these older homes that maybe have some of these, maybe the bedroom sizes are a little small here, or one bedroom's a little tiny, that's the office.
Yep.
That's a perfect, bedroom, 3rd, 4th bedroom and or office. So they got that, that allows them to do it. People now, you're seeing more people where also the party of one, it's a professional job in many instances. So meaning that it's not centric that they have to go to a specific place. They're going to do this for the next 20 years. They're like, look, I happen to work here, but I could be transferred to some other place and 2-3 years from now.
Sure.
So whatever they do, their home can be their home, and they can work there, regardless of where the job happens to be. So I mean, that's the shift. You see more single people, whether they're women or men. I mean, on a given month clientele, maybe there's more women than men buying, or whatever, vice versa sometimes. But there's a positive in a situation. If you go back, years and years ago, maybe 45, 50 years ago, where a woman realistically could not buy a home, engage in commerce pretty much by themselves. It was assumed that they had a spouse, had a husband, to some degree. That's a moot point now. That's a footnote in the history books. They can buy, do whatever they want to do, multiple houses, buy, sell, whatever. So, that's a good thing. Yeah. In that sense. So, that's kind of where it is. I mean, the society has changed relationships have changed. Like we spoke last time, whereas you maybe see less people who are traditionally married
Sure.
than before. You know, maybe they're more divorcees, maybe they're more long-term relationships, whatever, different things like that, different, um, relationships, relationship structures or whatever now. So, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Versatility in the market. We never get through everything, Jason. But that's a good
What?
thing too,
What
because
happened?
it gives you an opportunity to come back. We really appreciate
This is crazy.
your expertise. It happens. It's a good thing though. We might have to expand Tasha Talks to an hour one day.
See
Um,
that?
and that's how we'll do it. Tell people how they can reach you as a lender.
Oh, it's a Linda. So you can reach out to me directly, um, Jason Harris. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jason Harris. And you can call me direct at 773-960-5042.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. This has been another great episode of Tasha Talks. I'm your girl, Tasha. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Catch us every day on TLCTalkRadio.com, 24/7 edutainment. We'll catch you next week.